Greetings, my name is Monty Martin.
And I'm Kelly McLaughlin.
And we are the Dungeon Dudes. Welcome to our 2024 Rogue Class Guide for Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition.
We'll be taking an in-depth look at all of the class features, ability scores, subclasses, and build options to help you build a rogue for your next D&D campaign. There's a lot to discuss, so let's get rolling.
Our Rogue Class Guide is sponsored by Grimhollow Transformed. This is the latest project from Ghostfire Gaming, who we've worked with many times in the past, featuring a total refresh of their hit Grimhollow setting compatible with the 2024 core rules.
Enter the godless world of Atharis, where even heroes become monsters. The campaign features two massive books, the Campaign Guide and the Player's Guide, each containing everything needed to ground your game and make choices matter.
You can make characters using the new Monster Hunter class, which our friend Ben has been working on for a very, very long time. This has gone through a lot of development. It's really solid. And there's also over 40 dark fantasy subclasses and amazing transformation rules which allow your characters to become vampires or werewolves.
And you can delve into the lore and factions of the expansive dark fantasy world of Atharis. It's now live on Kickstarter, so make sure to check the links below and get in on it today. And now, on to this week's episode.
Rogues are the masters of stealth, skills, and subtlety in Dungeons & Dragons. There is certainly no better class to play if you enjoy hiding from the shadows, striking out against your foes, and rolling buckets of dice on a sneak attack and very high on your skill checks.
Rogues have been a classic archetype in fantasy and fiction for as long as I can remember. Some of my favorite characters growing up were always the roguish characters. So today we're going to look at the class abilities and the various features that rogues have to help you bring a rogue to life at your table.
As Kelly said, there are so many protagonists, antagonists, side characters, and well-loved rogues, ne'er-do-wells, swashbucklers, and more to draw inspiration from when you are playing a rogue. And I think that, well, almost all rogues kind of have this sort of sly, cunning aura about them. There's a few classic archetypes that you can really dial into when you're building the playstyle for your rogue.
Today we're going to look at three of these core archetypes, being the sniper, which is a rogue who does damage from afar, sneaking in the shadows and with pinpoint accuracy, sniping their foes. Or the skirmisher, who weaves in and out of combat, looking for the opportune moment to strike with deadly precision. Lastly, we have the skill expert. This cunning rogue knows how to use their skills to best thwart their enemies by using their quick wit, fast hands, and cunning mind to solve any problem that's thrown at them.
Now, all rogues are highly proficient with stealth and trickery, and they're great with all manner of finesse weapons, from hand crossbows to rapiers, and there's so many different combinations that are possible. You can be a daring swashbuckler, or a dead-eyed desperado, or a brooding assassin, or your classic wisecracking smuggler. However, these sort of archetypes, the sniper or the stealth archer, the skirmisher or kind of the duelist, or the skill expert or kind of the suave socialite, these archetypes are great places to start, and then you can sort of customize your rogue from there based on what you want to do with them in combat, in exploration, and in social interaction. Because rogues are really good at playing all of those pillars, and in fact, you'll find with almost any rogue, you are able to contribute to any pillar of play as long as you make a couple baseline choices that are going to make you ready for any situation.
As we look at the core traits of the rogue, we're going to start with their primary ability score. Now, rogues are sneaky, stealthy, and often use light weapons or hand crossbows or bows. This means that dexterity is going to be their primary ability score that you're going to want to focus on.
Rogues use D8 for their hit point die. This is on the lower side of things. It puts them on par with clerics and monks, so they're not super tough, but they're not as squishy as, say, a wizard or a sorcerer.
For saving throw proficiencies, you're going to get dexterity and intelligence. The dexterity is going to come into play a lot, and intelligence will protect you from a few niche circumstances that can be pretty devastating when they come up.
Now, for skill proficiencies, they get to pick 4 from a massive list that includes acrobatics, athletics, deception and insight, intimidation, investigation, perception, persuasion, sleight of hand, and stealth. Now, remember, you also get 2 more proficiencies from your background, and you might get some as well from your species or from an origin feat. And so I recommend that all rogues consider taking sleight of hand and stealth, but from there, you also may want to grab acrobatics, perhaps perception. Imagine your rogue being more of a sly manipulator. You may want deception and persuasion. I like to say, get your favorite 2 social skills, get sleight of hand and stealth, and then get 2 others, because then you'll have your 6 from your background and then from your core proficiencies.
This means that rogues are already starting off with a ton of skill proficiencies, more than any other class. And they also get tool proficiencies. They have Thieves Tools proficiency here, which is iconic to the rogue, and they use it for all sorts of disarming traps and picking locks and all of those fun things rogues love to do.
Now, rogues are proficient with all simple weapons, as well as martial weapons that have the finesse or the light property. This means that you will have to consult the weapons table, but it does mean that you get things like rapiers and hand crossbows and short bows and short swords, and of course, the dagger. What else do you need, really, as a rogue? But you only get light armor for your armor proficiencies.
As we look at the rogue's class features, starting at level 1, they do gain a weapon mastery. So they can use the weapon mastery properties from the player's handbook on page 214, and they get 2 weapons of their choice.
If you're going with melee weapons, I'd recommend looking at the rapier, the short sword, the scimitar, or the dagger. The rapier and the short sword both have Vex, which is going to generate your own advantage on your attacks after you hit with them, which is going to be really important for the big rogue class feature coming up. And rogues can effectively dual wield by having a offhand scimitar or dagger.
If you're looking at ranged options, the short bow or the hand crossbow are excellent choices as well. Both of these weapons have Vex, which Monty stated is going to grant you advantage. So all of them are handy for a rogue, because rogues love having advantage.
Now, you can change out one mastery choice each time you take a long rest, and so your choice kind of here is to choose one melee weapon and one ranged weapon, or if you want to go with a dual wielder style, go with one that gives you Vex and one that gives you Nick. That is a good way to do the dual wielding style. Also, at first level, you gain expertise. This doubles your skill proficiency bonus in 2 skills of your choice, and then you're going to get expertise in 2 more again at level 6. So this, what this means is that you take your regular proficiency bonus and just multiply that by 2 for those skills, and it gives you a crazy good bonus. What would you recommend for your expertises?
For me, that depends on, I believe, the build that we're going for. For my character, I took stealth and acrobatics. Although I have played with rogues in the past that I tried to be more of the skill expert, sort of suave manipulator, where I went stealth and persuasion. However, I will say that stealth is always the choice for me.
Yeah,
stealth 100% of the time.
I think in your 4, I think getting stealth, getting 1 social skill, which I think go with either deception if you want to lie to people, or persuasion if you want to tell the truth, and then pick your 2 other favorites.
Investigation was one for me as well. I really liked having that because I was playing a swashbuckler, sort of investigative, smooth-talking character. So for me, it ended up being acrobatics, persuasion, stealth, and investigation.
Yeah, I think that if you really don't know what to choose, you cannot go wrong with stealth, sleight of hand, deception, and perception would be the other one that also at level 1 you get Thieves Cant. This is giving you an extra language, and the Thieves Cant kind of code language. This is kind of a fun role-playing thing that allows you to kind of understand the underground slang that is used by criminal organizations and guilds and people that kind of run the dark underbelly of society.
I will say sometimes it might not come up a lot. This does feel like the ribbon feature of first level, but it is nice for those roleplay moments, or if you do have a thieves guild that you need to work your way into.
Now, the biggest feature that rogues get at level 1, and this is the iconic feature for the class, is Sneak Attack. This is your backstab that lets you deal extra damage as long as you can meet the prerequisites to pull the sneak attack off. Fortunately, the conditions are pretty reliably set up so that most rogues should be able to land a sneak attack every turn, as long as you keep an eye out for the conditions.
So with Sneak Attack, once per turn, you deal an additional 1d6 extra damage to one creature you hit with that attack. The d6s increase as you gain levels, so the stronger your rogue is, the stronger your Sneak Attack will be. In order to land the Sneak Attack, you need to either have advantage on the roll, or be targeting a creature that is within 5 feet of one of your allies. Whether you're playing a rogue that uses ranged attacks or melee, being able to jump into a target that is already in combat with your fighter, barbarian, or paladin and get the deadly sneak attack in. Rogues are notorious for stealing kills from their teammates by going in and getting that very careful sneak attack to somebody who is already engaged in combat. And that's what rogues are doing. They're the ones stabbing in the back while somebody is not paying attention to them.
Now, the general rule of thumb basically is you get to sneak attack if you have advantage or if you are attacking a target that is within 5 feet of one of your allies. But there's a couple key caveats here and exceptions, which is why we've made a handy-dandy flowchart that you can refer to make absolutely sure that you can sneak attack. Here's what it looks like. First of all, if you've already used sneak attack this turn and you're somehow making another attack, you're not doing another sneak attack. You only get to do it once per turn.
Secondly, are you using a finesse or ranged weapon? If the answer is yes, you're good. If the answer is no, you can't sneak attack.
Now, the big question here is, do you have advantage on the attack roll? If you do, at this point, bam, you got a sneak attack. Go pick up that fistful of d6s and roll them. But if the answer to that question is no...
Is at least one of your allies within 5 feet of the target?
Again, if the answer here is no, sorry, no sneak attack for you. But if the answer is yes...
Is that ally incapacitated?
If they are, sorry, no sneak attack for you.
If they are not incapacitated, do you have disadvantage on the attack roll? If yes, you don't get to sneak attack. If no, sneak attack.
Awesome. We'll have a download link in the description below where you can go to find this flowchart and download it for yourself. So if you need this as a reference to just make sure that you can or cannot sneak attack, that's there for you to take home. At level 2, you gain a really awesome feature for the rogue called Cunning Action. This allows you to use your bonus action every turn at no cost to take the dash, disengage, or hide action. This is such an amazing feature for rogues.
I think that the usefulness of taking these 3 options and moving them to a bonus action for rogue, it means that you can always reliably find a place to hide or get out of a bad situation. I think that it's just endlessly useful, and it's one of the most important features that rogues have.
For some examples of how you can use this feature, for example, you can dash if you need to close the distance to a target. So you might have a movement speed of 30 feet and your enemy is 40 feet away. So you can move, cunning action dash, move, and get up to them and attack them with your weapons. Alternatively, disengage is a great way to do a hit and run style strategy. When you disengage, you don't provoke an opportunity attack from the target, so you can move in, stab them, and then move out, and they don't get to attack you in the process.
Now, hiding can be a little bit trickier to use, but rogues being able to use it as a bonus action means that they can run in, kill a target, or snipe them, change to a new location, hiding behind cover, and hide there. That way, foiling their enemies who are searching for them and think they know where they just got attacked from, but they lost sight of the rogue who's now hidden behind the crates.
So in short, cunning action means that your rogue is highly mobile, able to get where they need to go, get out when they want to, or disappear when they need to, while still attacking at the same time. What is notable, and it's worth mentioning this, is that if you wanted to, you can actually still dash with your main action, or you can dodge with your main action. So you can double dash if you ever had to move 90 feet. on your turn, or you can dash with your action to really get out of somewhere and hide if you had to. So there's fun combinations if you're not attacking.
As we level up with the Rogue, at 3rd level, you're going to gain the Steady Aim feature. This allows you to spend a bonus action to gain advantage on your next attack roll this turn. As we saw from the sneak attack, if you're in a situation where you are targeting a creature and they are not next to an ally and you don't currently have advantage and you really want to get that sneak attack, Steady Aim is the perfect option to use to make sure that your attack is gaining that sneak attack.
However, you can only do this if you haven't moved this turn, and after you use it, your speed is 0. So this is a little bit easier to pull off with a ranged weapon, because you're going to be able to shoot whatever target you want, and you can just stay where you are. But you can use it in melee. You're just going to have to already have been adjacent to your target in order to use Steady Aim that turn.
Rogues gain ability score improvements at 4th, 8th, 10th, 12th, and 16th level, which is one more than a lot of the other classes. You also are going to gain an Epic Boon feat at 19th level.
We're talking about what feats and ability score increases to take for your rogue in just a moment. Now, at level 5, we gain a big upgrade to our sneak attack in the form of Cunning Strike. How this works is that we're able to apply an extra effect to our sneak attack by giving up one or more of the sneak attack dice. So you're lowering your damage, but you're getting an extra bonus effect. You get 3 options at level 5: poison, trip, and withdraw.
With poison, you give up 1d6 of your sneak attack to apply the poison condition to the target for 1 minute if they fail a con save.
And with trip, you can knock a large or smaller target prone, but they do get a dex save to resist that.
With withdraw, which also costs 1d6, after you attack, you can move half your speed without provoking opportunity attacks. This is a quick escape plan for you. At level 11, we gain improved Cunning Strike. Now you can apply 2 effects instead of 1. You do have to pay the cost for both, but at this point, you have many more d6s at your disposal, and so applying something like poison and trip might be worth it.
And finally, at level 14, we gain Devious Strikes. This adds the Daze, Knockout, and Obscure options to the Cunning Strikes. These ones cost a little bit more dice, but they have some pretty great effects. Obscure is 3d6 to blind a target for 1 round if they fail a dex save. Knockout will knock them flat out unconscious on a failed con save, but that does cost 6d6. And Daze can deny them either their movement, action, or bonus action if they fail a con save.
Going back to 5th level here, you also are gaining Uncanny Dodge, which allows you to spend a reaction to half an attack's damage against you. This is very handy for if a big hit's coming in, you can just say, I'm going to use my Uncanny Dodge. Now you're taking half damage. At 7th level, you're gaining Evasion. Now when you make a dexterity saving throw against a damaging effect, like getting hit with a fireball, you take half damage on a failed save or no damage on a successful one. This can have a major impact on your sturdiness in combat if you're dealing with dexterity saving throws.
Especially because rogues typically have very high dexterity saves, so Uncanny Dodge and Evasion are going to be the bread and butter of how you survive.
Next up, one of my favorite features for a rogue in the whole game is Reliable Talent. When you make an ability check that uses a skill or tool you have proficiency using, you treat any d20 roll of 9 or lower as a 10. I want to point out how impactful this is. I've played a rogue now from levels 1 to 17, and we're still going. And I think that what I learned just from this ability alone is that as much as I thought rogues were awesome because of sneak attack, it's actually their ability to use skills to impact things in all pillars of play, whether you're doing exploration, social encounters, or even in the middle of combat. Any time that a skill roll is needed, the rogue is probably the best in the game at doing this. My rogue, with their multiple skill proficiencies, I ended up taking, I believe, a skilled as a feat at some point so that I even had more skill proficiencies, and expertise in certain skills, And now reliable talent means that at 17th level, there are certain times that Monty will ask me for a skill roll, and I tell him I cannot roll lower than a 25. Do you still need me to make that skill roll? And Monty says no.
To clarify how this ability works, this is referring to the number that you rolled on the dice before your bonuses are added. So if you roll that d20 and the natural number on the die is a 7, you pretend that you rolled a 10 and then you add your normal bonuses on top of it. I see some players that think that this means that it kind of only you add your bonuses first and then check if it's under 10, but no. You add your bonuses after. So what it's effectively doing is it's saying you can't roll lower than a 10 on the dice. And then on top of that, you add your bonus.
So if you have expertise and have a plus 10 or a plus 11, that means that if you have a plus 10 to a skill, you cannot roll lower than 20.
And for reference, rogues get plus 10s to skills as early as level 4 anyways. And so by level 7, with you can very easily have an 18 in whatever ability score is the skill that you're using, usually dexterity, and your proficiency modifier is going to be plus 3, which is doubled to plus 6. So there's your plus 10 in stealth, which means, if you took your expertise in deception or in stealth, the lowest you can roll when lying to somebody is a 20. The lowest you can roll when sneaking around is a 20.
This changes the game and probably is one of the most valuable things that I've learned about my rogue. As much as I like doing things in combat, there are classes that do a lot of really amazing combat things. I think the rogues shine in skill challenges, and that's something that every rogue player should take to heart, is you are the master of skill challenges with the combination of your expertise and reliable talent.
Yeah, and I do think that reliable talent really incentivizes looking at the backgrounds, feats, and species that give you extra skill proficiencies. They're really good because, again, even if you don't have a high ability score modifier, or as long as you're proficient, it sets the minimum roll to 10. So even if you just have base proficiency in something, you're still not rolling maybe below a 13, which still can be good enough. At higher levels of play, rogues are going to get a handful of extra defensive features in the form of Slippery Mind, which gives them proficiency in wisdom and charisma saves. So now they're proficient in all the mental saves. And Elusive, which at 18th level means that as long as you're not incapacitated, attacks never have advantage against you. And the final capstone feature for the rogue at level 20 is once per short rest, when you fail a d20 test, you can just turn it into a 20. And that is, again, a 20 on the die, which means that if you do this on a missed attack roll, you just turned a miss into a crit.
Not bad.
So with all those class features in mind, let's think about the ability scores that we want to build our rogues around. And we're going to present 3-ish different options here for you, depending on if you want to do a sniper build, a skirmisher build, or a skill expert type build.
Starting with the sniper build, but starting off here with strength and dexterity, I will say they are the same no matter what build you are taking. We are kind of dumping our strength. No rogue really needs that. We're wearing light armor. We're using finesse and light weapons. We don't need strength here, but dexterity is the most important stat. So we are putting a 15 into dexterity. This is also where no matter what rogue you're playing, you're probably going to want to get your +2 into dexterity. After that, for the sniper, Constitution we're putting at a 14. 14 is a decent amount, not as high as some of the other options, but keep in mind that the sniper's goal is to stay at range at all times, so they have less of an issue with being hit constantly. If they're in the middle of combat, you're probably disengaging and trying to put your allies between you and the enemies. Intelligence, not super important for the sniper, so we're going to dump that. Wisdom, however, I think for the sniper build, having a good perception is going to be very, very valuable. So good wisdom is going to help out with that. Charisma, we want in the middle. We do want to be able to talk when we need to. If we have some proficiencies and expertise, that's going to really help. So not dumping charisma, but just putting it evenly at 10.
Now, for the skirmisher, we've decided to boost up our con and really max that out. This is because the skirmisher is going to be going into melee and they will be taking hits. And despite the rogue's defensive class features, those hit points still add up and they do make a difference. And then instead of going with a higher wisdom score, we've gone with a higher charisma score, so the skirmisher can take advantage of maybe more of that duelist archetype and be better at deception and persuasion as well. You could flip that around though, and if you wanted to, and go with and put the 14 in wisdom if you care more about the wisdom-based skills.
When we look at the skill expert, this one is going to also put their constitution at 14. Possibly the skill expert can kind of decide whether they're going to be a ranged combatant or a melee, but I would usually stick to ranged combat for my skill expert. Intelligence doesn't need to be too high. And again, we went with a higher charisma. This one actually has the highest charisma out of any of the rogues, because with the skill expert, this is the one that maybe you're taking persuasion and deception in. And that way you can lie your way through the front gate of the castle and then pick the lock to the MacGuffin and go steal it without anybody knowing. This is sort of my Mission Impossible build, where it's about getting in and getting out, even if you have to do it in broad daylight in front of people. The skill expert is the one who may be able to talk their way out of these situations.
Now, on the note of the strength and intelligence being at 8, in some cases you might not want to let your ability scores go this low. In those cases would be if you care about the athletics skill and the investigation skill. However, even with the penalty to these skills, if athletics and investigation are important to your character, you can still take expertise in those skills and come out ahead. It's really hard unless you're rolling your ability scores, it's really hard for the rogue to get every secondary stat with a positive bonus. Dexterity has the most impactful skills associated with it, with wisdom and charisma also having a lot of very impactful skills. People don't generally look to the rogue to be the one that's good at arcana, history, nature, and religion, like the knowledge skills. So investigation tends to be the only intelligence skill that rogues are interested in.
Yeah.
And there's only one strength-based skill, which is athletics. So this is why you see, like, because there's so many skills associated with dexterity, you got stealth, you got acrobatics, you got sleight of hand, there's persuasion, performance, intimidation, and deception for charisma, and there's insight, perception, survival, animal handling for wisdom. That's why the split. And I do like, you can split your ability scores up and get like +1s in wisdom and charisma, but I generally prefer to specialize.
There are exceptions that we will talk about as we move into subclasses, but also a lot of very thematic backgrounds actually work with these builds. So for the sniper, we're looking at the criminal, which gives you alert, and the soldier, which gives you savage attacker. For the skirmisher, we have criminal once again for alert, or the guide for magic initiate. This could be a really cool way to pick up a spell or two to help you out. And for the skill expert, the charlatan gives you the skilled origin feat, and the wayfarer gives you lucky. Both of these are going to really help out with shoring up those skill challenges.
Now, for species, rogues can be found amongst all the peoples that inhabit the worlds of Dungeons and Dragons, but I think that there are a couple really iconic options. For me, I want to start off by saying the human rogue is pretty standard. You're always going to find your ruffians and the best and worst amongst humanity. And I do like the human because rogues really like origin feats. And so being able to get alert and skilled, or skilled and lucky, or take skilled twice is really good and really worth considering.
I also think that one of my favorite choices is the halfling rogue. If you go all the way back to Bilbo Baggins was referred to as the thief that they hired. So he was technically roguish in the way that he was portrayed. So the halfling rogue might be one of my favorite choices. But I do think, elven rogues, because elves feel naturally like stealthy.
Yeah.
Although I think that there's also something for me. This might be because I played a bunch of Skyrim as this character, but the Dragonborn rogue feels right.
Yes, your Dragonborn stealth archer.
Yes.
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 Also, another iconic choice is the Tiefling. I think something about Tiefling rogues, for whether that is playing into like that underworld theme of being kind of, the natural like anti-hero sort of look to you. I think they work really well. And I also think that the orc rogue played as more of like the brute enforcer is a cool archetype that also works for the Goliath, incidentally.
When we move on to feats for the rogue, we have a few feats that we think are important for all rogues to consider, and then there are more specific options for the different archetypes that we've looked at. For every build, you're going to want to check out the Skulker feat. This is almost, it feels essential for the rogue. We're not going to tell you have to take it, but we're going to tell you.
But it's really hard to pass up.
Read it and think about how good it is. It's so good.
It gives you advantage on stealth checks in combat, and it also gives you blind sight, which rogues love operating in the darkness, and having 10-foot blind sight is killer good.
Yeah, turn off all the lights and assassinate your enemies, and you can just see as long as they're within 10 feet. Like, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, really good with any of the roguish species that get the darkness spell as well. Yeah.
The other one that I would always look at is Speedy. Speedy is going to increase your movement speed. Rogues love being maneuverable. But then also Speedy means that if you do make an attack against a target, you can actually move out of their range without provoking opportunity attacks. This saves your cunning action for something like dashing or hiding, because you can basically somewhat disengage as long as you made an attack against the creature. You also get no penalty by moving over difficult terrain. So this makes a very mobile and sneaky rogue. If you have both Skulker and Speedy, you can get in and get out without any issues.
Now, for sniper builds, you might want to consider either Sharpshooter or Crossbow Expert to augment your attacks with either short bows or crossbows. Very, very useful for also if you're using these weapons in close quarters, because they allow you to ignore the firing in melee penalty. The Skirmisher, on the other hand, could consider going with the Dual Wielder feat, although this feat will ask you to use up your bonus action if you are dual wielding, but it is a possible way for you to get a third attack on your rogue. Defensive Duelist is an amazing reaction for any melee focused characters that while you're using a finesse weapon, if you are attacked in melee, you can apply your proficiency bonus to your AC, cranking your AC up for the rest of the turn against melee attacks. And so this is a really great defensive feature that in some cases, you've got Uncanny Dodge which halves the damage against one attack, but the Defensive Duelist reaction can just make it a miss outright and also protect you against other attacks.
And for the skill expert, if you really are focusing more on just using your skills to get through every possible encounter, you might want to look at the actor feat so that you can really fake your way into situations. Keen Mind and Skill Expert. These are just going to make you unstoppable for skill challenges.
Keen Mind, Observant, and Skill Expert are actually going to give you expertise in more skills. Notably, Keen Mind giving you investigation, Observant giving you perception expertise, and Skill Expert giving you just another expertise anywhere. So if you really want to do the whole reliable talent up into the stratosphere sort of thing, take all these feats. So looking at these subclasses for the rogue, first of all, we come to the Arcane Trickster, which if you thought the rogues had a lot of tricks up their sleeve, the Arcane Trickster's got something else for you. This one is great for skirmishers and skill experts, and it gets cantrips and wizard spells that they can cast using their spell slots.
They also get access to the Mage Hand cantrip, but they can use it as a bonus action, and the hand is invisible and can perform sleight of hand checks. And at higher levels, you can even trip targets using your Cunning Strike. So your Mage Hand is better than everybody else's Mage Hand. It's pretty cool.
Now, the Arcane Trickster is one place where you might not want to dump your intelligence because their spellcasting is based on int. It is possible to build an Arcane Trickster that only uses buff and utility spells, and so your intelligence doesn't matter too much. But if you do want to use any saving throw type spells, spells like Hypnotic Pattern or Suggestion, you're going to want to invest a little bit in intelligence so that those spells land. Otherwise, I really recommend pairing Mage Hand with Minor Illusion and maybe True Strike. Again, with True Strike, you'll need this actually does allow you to make intelligence your highest score if you go with True Strike, because then you're using that to attack with. And you'll want to look at other spells like Shield, Find Familiar, Misty Step, Mirror Image, Invisibility, Suggestion, Major Image, Dimension Door. All of these make for a fantastic cool toolkit because now your rogue can turn invisible, teleport around, they can fly, they can trick people with mirror images. It gives you a lot of options that really expands your toolkit.
The Arcane Trickster is just adding that little bit of magic to an already sneaky class. And so finding the spells that work to amplify what the rogue's already good at is really the trick to making an excellent Arcane Trickster. When we move on to the Assassin, this one is great for snipers and skirmishers. This is going to be the subclass that is all about trying to murder its target as soon as possible once the dice are rolled for initiative. They gain advantage on initiative rolls and advantage on attack rolls against targets that haven't taken a turn yet in combat. They deal extra damage equal to the rogue level when they hit them with the sneak attack during this turn. So the Assassin's first round of combat usually means they're going first and they're dishing out a boatload of extra damage to the enemy of their choice.
They can also use steady aim and still move, and targets that they use their poison Cunning Strike on actually take some damage when they fail their saves. And finally, they get a Death Strike that allows them to double their damage against a target they sneak attack during the first round of combat if that target fails a con save. That is their level 17 feature, so you got to build up to that one.
If you like psionics, the Soul Knife might be the rogue option for you. They make amazing skirmishers and skill experts. They get to conjure psychic blades, and they can throw the psychic blades, or they can run in and do melee damage with them. They deal 1d6 plus your dexterity in psychic damage. They have the finesse and throw-in properties, and they have the Vex Mastery, which we already talked about being pretty great for a rogue weapon. I love the idea as well that because you don't carry physical swords, this rogue is really great for sneaking into a place, and if the guards have to search you, hey, I got no weapons on me.
Yeah.
But you always have your weapons on you because they're psychic blades.
Now, the Soul Knife gets a bunch of psionic energy dice, which come back on a long rest, but also they get one die back on a short rest. And they can use these dice in a variety of ways. But one of the coolest features they have is the psi-empowered knack, which means that when they make a skill check with a skill that they're proficient in, they can roll their psionic energy die and add that to the total if they failed the check. If they still fail, the dice isn't expended, but then otherwise you turn a failure into a success. Now, if you've been following along here, we just talked about how reliable talent cranks your skill checks up into the stratosphere, but now you're going to add another die roll to this too. So like, if for some reason a 20 still wasn't enough, you can now roll another die and add it to that. So Soul Knives are capable of nailing skill checks in the high 20s to the low 30s.
It's also great because the skills that you have expertise in, you're probably good. But you have a bunch of skills that you have regular proficiency in. And if it just so happens that even at a 10, you might still only be at a 15 or 16, adding a die roll to say, hey, if the challenge was over 20, I can still get that. It means that anything that you're proficient in, you're probably going to succeed.
The Soul Knife, in my opinion, is the best choice for skill experts.
Yeah.
They also can use their psionic energy dice to create psychic links with their companions, turn invisible. They can throw their psychic blade and teleport to where it landed. It's just a lot of fun. It's a really fun and creative class, and I think it's like the Arcane Trickster, you get to have it all.
And then we have the classic rogue archetype, the Thief. The Thief is an excellent sniper or a skill expert. They're going to have abilities like Fast Hands, which lets you use objects and Sleight of Hand as a bonus action. You also get to gain a climb speed and have a longer jump distance. And with Supreme Sneak, you get to stay hidden when you make sneak attacks. Finally, use magic device means that thief rogues can actually use additional magic items. They gain an additional attunement slot, and they can even use spell scrolls. So they get to steal a little bit of the magic user stuff here by using extra magic items and reading spell scrolls aloud.
So with all that in mind as we build our rogues, let's consider how we might roleplay our rogue at the table. And I think for rogues are all characters that have a very specific and special set of skills. But how did you get those skills?
When I think of that question, I mean, we have everything from Han Solo, Aladdin, all of these characters. I mean, both of those I think were self-taught.
Yeah.
Han Solo was modified his own ship and became a smuggler, and Aladdin learned everything he did on the streets. But you also have stories where there are thieves guilds or groups where people learn from a master.
Think of Black Widow, who was someone that maybe was brought into an organization, maybe not for the right reasons, or maybe not by their choice, and taught skills from a very young age, taught to kill and steal and thieve from a very young age, right? I often think of there's so many archetypes of that, like, young child that learned from a very early age how to master the art of death. And then they break away from that organization and want to make it out on their own, but they've still got all those skills.
And actually with that question, are you part of an organization or are you more of a lone wolf? I actually want to say something that I think is very important for those of you creating a rogue. When we say lone wolf, that's a very classic trope to dig into, but I want to say that D&D is generally a collaborative game, and so even if you are building a lone wolf character, think of who it is that they do make connections with. Han Solo was a lone wolf character, but he had Chewie, and he didn't say no to working with other people, as long as the money was right, for a time, until he realized that, hey, I actually like these people and they're my friends. And I think that's the more interesting journey. You can be a lone wolf who shrugs off other people, but when you get brought into a party, you're going to get the job done, you're going to work with them, and you're probably going to become friends with them along the way.
Yeah, I like to say that if you look at many lone wolf type characters in a lot of fiction and media, yeah, they're really cool and really interesting, but often for them, one of their conflicts is how they integrate with other people socially. And for many lone wolf characters, part of their story is learning how to work with other people and how to make friends and find their family. You know, you can even look at like classic characters like Geralt of Riva, The Witcher. Like,
he's a lone wolf.
He is a lone wolf, but like he still finds family in the world in his own way. He still finds people that he cares about and still finds people that he relates to. So if you are interested in playing that archetype, you got to bear in mind that like part of the lone wolf archetype is learning how to not be a lone wolf anymore, right? That's kind of the message at the heart of that whole thing.
In short, don't steal from your other party members unless you've talked about it in session 0 and everybody at the table goes, I love that. Yeah. But they might not.
Yeah.
And then you probably shouldn't.
Yeah. And this is the thing, is that rogues often are, for a lot of new players, an opportunity to kind of indulge in some antisocial fantasies of like stealing from your party members, being a bit of a jerk, lying to them, getting more of the treasure out of them. If you're going to do those sort of things, make sure that that's the thing that your character is doing, and that's not you as a player being a jerk to the other players at the table, right? There is a way to do that is fun and interesting, as long as everyone's on board with having that fun and playing that scene. But if you're playing into that fantasy just because you want to steal from the other party members so that you get more gold to buy a magic item, that's not the best motivation behind that. And on this front, it's worth noting that rogues don't have to be criminals, and they certainly don't have to be jerks.
They could be a bold spy, they could be a cunning investigator, they could be a special agent.
James Bond is a rogue.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of roguish characters, like all of your special agent, secret assassin, cool person.
James Bond, Black
John
Widow.
Wick.
Yeah, John Wick.
Now, John Wick is also a lone wolf, but he has friends, he has people he relies on, and he is definitely he is a rogue. Then, of course, like, again, Han Solo had his group of friends. You have Aladdin needed to make allies, and every good rogue doesn't necessarily need to be a criminal. Some of the ones I talked about were criminals, but not all of them. And rogues also gain the ability to speak Thieves Cant, and you really get to maybe talk to your DM as well on what that looks like for you. Do you have certain symbols that you use, or ways of speaking, or sayings, or patterns in which you talk that actually come from your knowledge of Thieves Cant? Perhaps a saying that sounds like something means something completely different to the right person.
What are some of your rogues' biggest accomplishments or their biggest heists? Do you brag about them? Do you exaggerate the details, or do you keep your secrets? Or maybe is there like a legendary score that you want to be the one that is like, yes, I stole the Diamond of Mount Kadath from the vaults of Castle Draken, and that is the thing that I am looking for.
And going back to it, who can you trust is a very important question. I think that every rogue needs someone, even if you're just starting the campaign with one person. Who is it that you do rely on? And are others foolish to trust you? Again, we walk a fine line on not being a jerk player, but do you have a tendency to let people down when they do trust you?
Yeah, it's kind of that idea of like, are you only in it for the money, and will money always motivate you? Or are you actually a thief with a heart of gold underneath?
And will you do anything for gold? Or are there any jobs you won't take, or lines that you won't cross?
And maybe if you do need that gold, is that because you've got some bad debts? Or have you made a powerful enemy? Again, think of Han Solo and Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, at the start, he was only in it for the money because he had to pay off the scariest crime boss.
And this is a really easy, like, if you need an immediate, instant motivation for your rogue, stealing the Han Solo, I owe a crime lord an inordinate amount of money, and so I need to play nice, and I need people to help me keep me safe, is like, bang, instant story.
And how did you meet your adventuring companions? This is now your pack of wolves that you're going to be traveling with, so how did you come to adventure with them? And on top of that, every rogue needs a flaw.
More than one.
Or more than one. Multiple flaws. So what are your vices, your dark secrets, your fears? Maybe there's something that you ran into in your past, and now you never want to do a job that involves bears. I don't know why.
And maybe you don't explain why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going into so-and-so. He has a pet bear. Not doing it. Why? Won't talk about it. Just don't like bears.
Right. Yeah.
Don't like snakes. Why does it have to be snakes?
So that is our guide to playing and role-playing a rogue for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition.
We hope that you learned a lot and are ready to start your next rogue character. I've had a lot of fun playing my rogue, and I hope that you have a lot of fun playing yours. If you saw anything in here that got you excited about your next rogue character, tell us about them in the comments below.
The videos we created on this channel are made possible thanks to the incredible generosity of our Patreon supporters. So if you enjoy the work that we do here, you might want to consider becoming a patron of the show so that we can continue to make awesome videos just like this one. The links are down below.
And if you want to see me playing a rogue for a long time, a little bit against type, you can check that out in our campaign in the world of Drakenheim. It airs Tuesday evenings right here on YouTube. You can check out all the previous episodes right up over here.
And we've got plenty more class guides for all the 2024 classes in the PHP right up over here.
Please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and ring that bell so that you never miss an episode.
Thanks so much for watching. See you next time
in the dungeon.